Let's jump straight into this explainer. When you hear the Great Depression of 1929, what pops into your head? Wall Street bankers jumping from windows? Massive lines of jobless people waiting for soup? Well, get ready to have your mind totally blown. Today, we're taking the latest economic history research and completely shattering everything you thought you knew about this disaster. All the facts you've been taught? Yeah, they might be totally wrong.
For decades, textbooks have fed us a standard answer. They've told us that the United States Federal Reserve's monetary tightening in 1928 pulled the trigger on the global crash. For nearly a century, everyone's been pointing fingers at the U.S. But what if the latest macroeconomic data proves the real prime suspect has been hiding in plain sight this whole time? Get ready for a major reality check.
When you dig deep into the macro data, all the evidence points to one wildly unexpected source: France. Yep, you heard me right. France. The data proves that the French central bank's absolutely insane hoarding of global gold secretly sliced the world economy's main artery. And look, this isn't some wild conspiracy theory. These are the cold, hard facts buried in historical ledgers.
Now you might be thinking, hey, the Depression happened because the world ran out of money, right? Wrong. We have to go back to the gold standard era. Back then, gold literally was money. The amount of gold you had directly dictated how much currency could flow through the market. And here's the crazy part. Between 1928 and 1933, the darkest years, global gold reserves didn't shrink. They actually exploded by a massive 19%. This means the world was absolutely not short on real wealth. Global printing presses should have been running at full speed, fueling incredible prosperity. The money was always there. Looking at this data makes the mystery so much deeper. The red line shows exactly where global prices should have gone based on that steady growth in gold supply. Wealth is going up, so the economy should be humming, but then look at the terrifying reality of the blue line. While gold supplies were rising, global prices fell off an absolute cliff. It's a fatal paradox that literally defies basic economic logic. At the time, there was this proven theory by the famous economist Gustav Cassel called the 3% rule. Cassel showed that global gold reserves only needed to grow by 3% every year to keep world prices perfectly, solidly stable. And we were easily smashing that 3% target. We had plenty of gold. So here is the ultimate question. If we had more than enough gold to support the economy, why on earth did prices plummet by 42%? 42%. That meant thousands of businesses instantly failing, factories shutting down, and millions of regular people losing everything.
So where did all that immense wealth go? It absolutely did not vanish into thin air. That money was literally kidnapped. It was forcefully locked away by a massive, artificial power that acted like a financial black hole, silently and ruthlessly sucking the liquidity right out of the global system. The visual violence of the numbers here is just mind-boggling. In just a handful of years, France's share of world gold skyrocketed at a terrifying pace. Look at this. From a modest 7% in 1926, it violently ballooned to a suffocating 27% by 1932. Can you even imagine that? A single nation's vault swallowed more than a quarter of the entire planet's wealth. Siphoning wealth at that speed instantly shattered the global financial system's ability to cope. Think about how completely absurd this proportion is. Let's compare their economies in 1932. The United States economy was roughly 4 times larger than France's. 4 times. Yet the chilling reality is that both nations were sitting on almost the exact same massive stockpile of global gold. A country a fraction of America's size morphed into a ravenous gold-sucking monster. It's like a tiny boxer suddenly sucking up half the oxygen in the arena. It totally wrecked the global balance of power. So how do they actually pull off this heist? The crucial mechanism here is a deadly move known in economics as sterilization. Let me translate that into plain English. Under a normal gold standard, when your country rakes in a bunch of gold, you're supposed to print more money. Money supply goes up, domestic prices rise, and eventually that gold naturally flows back out to other countries to keep the world balanced. But France, they completely flipped the table. They locked all that siphoned gold deep in their vaults and flat out refused to turn on their printing presses. They took the world's oxygen, refused to exhale, and literally starved the rest of the planet. By 1932, the Bank of France's cover ratio, which is the amount of gold legally required to back up their paper money, hit an absolutely insane 80%. To put that into perspective, the legal minimum requirement was only 35%.
This wasn't just conservative banking. This was a pathological hoarding policy. They actively and completely drained the lifeblood right out of the global economy. Global liquidity was dead.
You can literally see the chokehold right here. Over 4 short years, as a tsunami of wealth flooded into the country, the French central bank's total assets skyrocketed by 29%. That should have kicked off a massive economic boom. But look at the bottom line. Their actual money supply, the money that everyday people could actually use, flatlined like a corpse at just 1%. The central bank was so incredibly stubborn, they refused to let even a drop of that massive wealth actually circulate in the market. This really quantifies the sheer devastation. It brilliantly tracks exactly how much gold was forcefully ripped out of global circulation. Early on, you can see both the US and France acting like partners in crime. They are both tightening, collectively crushing the world economy with massive deflationary pressure. But pay attention, because that was just the prelude. Right after this, a totally fatal split in policy happens. By 1931 and 1932, everything flipped. The US realized they were losing gold too, got spooked, and immediately backed off, loosening the noose. But France? They didn't hit the brakes. While the entire world was suffocating for cash, France coldly and relentlessly doubled down, devouring even more gold. That made France the sole, terrifying driving force, pushing the entire globe deeper into a deflationary death spiral. To absolutely nail this point home, the author of this research ran a totally brilliant counterfactual simulation, basically asking what if? What if, back then, France and the US had just acted normally and maintained their 1928 reserve ratios instead of aggressively hoarding? The results will give you chills. Just by acting normally, France would have freed up 13.7% of the world's gold and the US another 11.7%. That massive wave of liquidity would have instantly wiped out half of the terrifying deflation that destroyed millions of lives between 1930 and 1931. Global prices would have gently risen. The absolute worst of the Great Depression literally wouldn't have even happened.
Now, to be totally fair to the academic research, we do have to point out a slight limitation in the author's mathematical model. It doesn't perfectly account for the fact that when prices crash, gold mining becomes cheaper, so miners naturally dig up more gold to try and fill the gap. But honestly, even if you factor in that short-term mining bump, it's just a drop in the bucket. That tiny flaw does absolutely nothing to diminish the overwhelming, devastating guilt of French monetary policy. They are entirely on the hook for this.
Nobel Prize-winning economist Robert Mundell once dropped this incredibly profound quote. He said, had the major central banks pursued policies of price stability, there would have been no Great Depression, no Nazi Revolution, and no World War II. That gives me goosebumps. It perfectly captures the horrifying cost behind all this cold macro data. One arrogant, extreme policy failure by a central bank didn't just wipe out people's savings, it literally shattered global geopolitics and paved a bloody road straight to a world war. It is no exaggeration to say that the data completely obliterates the old common sense today. Could one single central bank's paranoid obsession with a safe vault truly rewrite the darkest chapters of human history? I'm going to leave you with that provocative thought to chew on, because history constantly offers a chilling reminder. Sometimes the ultimate villains who destroy the world aren't carrying weapons at all. They're just sitting quietly at a desk, clutching the keys to the gold vault.